Good morning, Concrete Enforcement Agency.
It's our commission to enforce proper concrete practices at all times, to seek out those who are not properly trained, and to provide training opportunities to all, regardless of race, creed, or skill level. When you guys get out of here,
I don't even remember the first meeting, but it was in 5th grade at Campbell Hill Elementary School. You know, we sort of lived in the same neighborhood in Renton. So I'd been working for about 10 years or so, just kind of, well, I was paying the bills, and, you know, got through the apprenticeship, and I was running a little job for Hope, and we had to call the hall, that wonderful thing, and who shows up as part of the crew but Mark Maher. I think I scared Mark because, you know, he recognized me too, but it just in the morning and stuff, I ended up grabbing him, giving him a hug, going like, God, I'm glad to see you, Mark. It was a nice way to run into Mark again, and he wanted me, when he started working on the apprenticeship down here, for some reason he was going to try to sell me on the idea of being an instructor down here and how to become a vocational instructor. I thought being a cement mason was enough at that stage, you know. So I took that challenge. Mark, you know, got to take apprentices to the World Concrete. I think one of the fun times, like of the apprenticeship and side projects, he had a real good relationship with the community college and stuff, and we did a lot of projects up at the campus in West Seattle, and I can't think of, I'd never described Mark as a bad influence on anything that he was ever involved with. I mean, he was almost too good that way. I mean, what's too good? But I mean, just the idea is that Mark was a pretty genuine man. I never saw him, you know, I mean, I saw him get mad and different things, but he never was mean to anybody. I never, you know, I thought he treated people way too fair. I ran out of patience with people long before he would. So I guess that's the good thing, you know.
Well, Mark came from this, you know, when the wheelbarrow, the barrel would wear out, he'd give an apprentice the wrenches and tell him, go take that apart. Now put that handle onto this one that's got a broken handle, just so they would learn how to do things. But then he would save the pieces so that he could keep recycling wheelbarrows. Just because when he first started, he had to. There was no money.
When I joined the apprenticeship, we was in the little shack over here. We had the little tent and everything else, and then we started on the building.
I did my interview, I filled out my paperwork, everything in the Connex. All these buildings, and the apprenticeship has grown since then amazingly, and Mark had his hands on everything.
One of the neat things with Mark is his passion to grow and get our apprenticeship to be the best that we could possibly be, and that has a lot to do with his hard work that he spent working after hours and with the state and different entities. So we originally really didn't have much in our apprenticeship. Our history is, you know, we used to start in the library downtown Seattle and do night classes, and we slowly migrated to this facility here, working out of Quonset huts, mobiles, a lot of times outside, or doing projects off campus just to get a project so we could get going. And to where he got this land donated by Norm Dix, Maria Cantwell, and they collaborated together and got this state land donated to apprenticeship. And with that donation, we've got this building here that we share with the Brick Masons, and the college has building C over there closer to the Hat and Boot, and created this facility. And his dream was always to make things grow. You know, and if you look behind me right now, we got a 3D printer.
Mark was somebody that always cared about his apprentices. I mean, he had kids that were in there 7, 8 years. And he would, if they came back and asked for another chance, he'd give it to them. And there were kids coming through that I said, you know, why waste the time, Mark? And he'd say, they'll be okay. And 99% of the time they were.
He showed up on the job site once with some documents and reminded me that that was my commitment to come to class, and that I might be held liable for some of the tuition that was being spent and things of this nature. Now it's funny. Back at the time, I'm not sure how funny it was.
It was just something about Mark's nature that put me at ease. And from that point on, we had a good conversation. I filled out some paperwork. He didn't even know me, but he believed in me.
When I joined the apprenticeship in 2000, I was 21 and needed some advice. And if it hadn't been for Mark, I don't think that I would have stuck in the trade. He really encouraged me and always had something nice to say. He'd always tell me how important training was. And I listened to that, and that's how I am where I am now.
I really enjoyed seeing Mark, because I know that in our relationship, I can always be honest with him, and he would always be honest with me.
Mark was a visionary. He would have ideas way beyond, I think, the time. I think some of the ideas that he was trying to implement, we're finally getting full grasp of what he was saying back in the early 2000s, and we're actually able to get all the trades to see as far as safety and mentorship.
The stuff he did, he'd find out about a new product. He was always looking for new products and new applications of what people were doing. The stamping when it was first coming around, the overlays, epoxy work. If it had anything to do with concrete, Mark claimed it. And he took the trouble to get the state to put it into our standards. He just fought for our work. The floor polishing, everything. He just was always on the go.
I really feel like my job here is to carry on what Mark had started with this apprenticeship and the goals that it had. So Mark has a drive inside of me that keeps me going every day. I think that's pretty special to know that I get to be a part of something huge like this.
That's how I think of Mark now, is kind of what a genius he was, because he had a long-term strategy for this local, and it kind of plays out a little bit more every day.